How do you find that perfect place to move to if you have no idea what you're looking for? Well, you talk to friends, consult with your probation officer, and you watch videos like this to get an idea about towns you've never heard of or know very little about. Then you do some more research on your own, and hopefully you find that town that is the peas to your carrots. It is mid-September, which means we're getting close to the last quarter of 2023. And statistically speaking, this is when people start looking for new places to live. On average, people who move will do it within 6 months of starting their research. That is why most people move between mid-March and mid-June. Today we're going to look at some of the best towns to call home in 2024. These are nice places, so chances are they won't always be the cheapest places. But I will list each town and give you some different stats to show why I think this is a great place to live. If you guys like this video and want to see more in this series, like broken down by region, let me know in the comment section below and which region we should start with. All right, we're gonna look at some of the great towns to relocate to in 2024. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Bozeman, Montana. I read a travel guide a few years back that described Bozeman as a picturesque town nestled in the Rocky Mountains embrace. Bozeman is often referred to as the gateway to the great outdoors. Historically, Bozeman played a role as a key post during the westward expansion. That's a proud part of their history for anyone that's from Montana, really. It's got a nice downtown district with a solid blend of historic buildings and modern establishments. It is home to Montana State University, which if you've ever lived at a college town, there's usually a good blend of young people and older people. Normally people think college towns just to be filled with a bunch of 20-year-olds. It's not like that. I forget all the facts about it, but I watched this video some years back on YouTube where the person was saying that a lot of retirees will go back to wherever they went to school, that city or that area. It's years they've been away, they've led their life, they've finished their career, and they want to go back to the place where they were really happy. So they end up in the area where they went to school. I mean, you don't have a bunch of 65-year-olds getting apartments on campus, but like any place in Montana, they are filled with all kinds of cultural events and festivals. Moreover, the town's growth in recent years has attracted a diverse group of residents, from tech entrepreneurs to artists, all drawn in by its unique combination of natural splendor and thriving community spirit. We just talked about this on the Wyoming video a couple days back, that Montana, like Wyoming, there's this sense of community, and it has to do with the history of these states. Now, why do I think this is a great place to live in 2024? Real estate prices are expensive, but they've been going down. They have very little crime, great schools, plenty of things to do. Their negatives are it is expensive and it gets cold, very cold. The average Bozeman home goes for $710,000. That's down 2.3% over the past year, and that's as of June 2023. Number 9, Burlington, Vermont. Burlington, Vermont is a great place to live. It is very liberal and they got this whole hippie artist thing going on there. But don't worry, if you move there, you could vote however you want and nobody forces you to smoke the devil's lettuce. Burlington is a good sized town with about 45,000 residents as of 2022. It sits on the eastern shore of Lake Champlain and has the Adirondack Mountains to the west. Burlington is a pretty cool little town. Like I said, it's got the lake right there. One of my favorite features is, besides the great architecture this place has, Church Street. Church Street has about 4 blocks that are just walkable. It's like one of those old school marketplaces with coffee places, bars, food, and like boutique type shops. It's a really nice little area. It does have some negatives. Winters can be brutal in Vermont, not just Burlington. And this place is expensive. The positives are it's Burlington, Vermont. It's a beautiful city. They get great scores for their hospitals and they have very little traffic. Now, one thing I should say, they do have a little bit of crime. Their violent crime rate is 8% lower than the national average, but their property crime is about 60% above the national average. But like I've said many times before on this channel, there's cities in this country that are like 400 and 500% above the national average. If you want to move to Burlington, you're looking at an average home value of $507,874. That is up 8.9% over the past year. Number 8, Traverse City, Michigan. Often referred to as the jewel of the Midwest, Traverse City is a captivating blend of natural beauty and cultural richness. This town sits on the shores of Lake Michigan's Grand Traverse Bay. The town boasts some of the region's most pristine freshwater beaches, making it an ideal location for both relaxation, aquatic adventures, and a great place to call home. It's also known as the cherry capital of the world for some reason. I guess it has something to do with growing cherries. That's just a guess though. They do have an annual cherry festival, so that gives me more evidence they probably do grow a lot of cherries here. This is a big event though. The streets come alive with parades, live music, and of course, an array of cherry-based delicacies. So yeah, I think the jury's out still, but they grow a lot of cherries here. This place just isn't about cherries and beaches. It is a place you learn to hate tourists. I have a friend from there. He was in the army with me. I wouldn't call him a friend, but he's an acquaintance. And he said he grew to hate tourists because he grew up in Traverse City. I mean, but really that kind of is what keeps this town alive. The summers are amazing in Traverse City. If you look at all the stats that this place has, they're all great. Crime, they not that bad. I mean, they've got violent crime that's 3% higher than the national average, but their total crime rate's 32% lower, so that's phenomenal. They got some employment issues because a lot of it's seasonal. That's not a big deal. It's affordable, hardly any commuting unless you're there during the summer. Their schools are great. This is a great place to live. If you decide you do want to live there, the homes aren't terribly expensive. They're about $417,000. That's the average. And in this town, you can find some that are well over $1 million. Number 7, Taos, New Mexico. Here's the travel brochure description of Taos. Nestled amidst the rugged beauty of northern New Mexico, Taos presents a mesmerizing blend of culture, histories, and landscapes. That sounds really beautiful. Whenever I see words like mesmerizing instead of like beautiful or even amazing, I always remember a quote from Einstein: "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it." Mesmerizing isn't that big of a word, but it's just always kind of sat that way with me. Sort of like viscosity. This town has been inhabited for over 1,000 years. This is one of the oldest continuously inhabited communities in the United States. It's really interesting. It's got this multi-story adobe structure, which if you know anything about those, and especially back from when it was built, they normally weren't 2 stories. It's got a lot of history, it's a beautiful town, and it's always attracted artists and pretty much famous people. Here's some of the people that have owned property or lived in Taos for a while. Some of them might still live there right now. Politician Donald Rumsfeld owned a property here and died there in 2021. Julia Roberts owned property here. Dennis Hopper, former 2-term governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson, actor-artist Dean Stockwell, and country singer Lynn Anderson. There's like 70 other notable people, but they are all artists. And most people, unless you're a big fan of art or you're a fan of that artist, you don't know who they are, so we won't get into it. But that sort of tells you this is an amazing place to live. The cost of living in Taos is affordable, so is housing. They get great healthcare scores. Their schools are decent. 74% of residents have a positive view of this town. The average is about 62%. Just a side note to that, Detroit, it's 15% have a positive view of the town, or city in that case. They do have a little crime, and you probably want to have a job if you move here or be wealthy like some of the people that have bought property there. But overall, I really like this place. And the real estate prices are dropping, so it's probably a great time to move there. If you decide you want to move to Taos, New Mexico, the typical home value is $458,000. Number 6, Brevard, North Carolina. Have you ever thought about moving to a place that has southern hospitality and the Blue Ridge Mountains? Good news, you don't have to look anymore. I found it. It's Brevard, North Carolina. Brevard is nestled right on the edge of the Pisgah National Forest. This is a great place if you're into waterfalls, hiking, small towns, and nice people. Brevard has over 250 waterfalls in the surrounding county. It's also known for its white squirrels. Yes, they have like white, I wouldn't say they're albino squirrels, but they're fluffy white like Santa's beard squirrels. Legend has it that these fluffy critters are descendants from some that escaped a carnival back in the day, like 1940s. If you're strolling downtown, don't be surprised if you see some. Brevard is a small Blue Ridge Mountain town with about 8,000 residents. If you're looking for it on a map, it's about 25 miles west of Asheville, North Carolina. And for any of you that have never been to the Blue Ridge Mountains or this part of the country, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the South. The whole Blue Ridge Mountain area is just, oh, it's amazing. Great fishing, hunting, hiking, camping. It's all there for you. Brevard is a great place to live, but I would say it's probably best for people that are retired or people that work from home. Take a job with you. They don't have the best employment numbers here, but their cost of living is low. Their crime is outstanding. They got things to do. Their healthcare scores are great. It is an amazing small town. Their violent crime rate is actually 80% lower than the national average. That's so low, if anyone gets murdered here, it probably was a hunting accident, which wouldn't be murder. I believe that's manslaughter. But you get the idea. This town is very similar to Asheville. It's just a smaller town. They got the same art scene. They got the Brevard Music Festival. They do kind of the same type thing. They're not too far away, so it totally makes sense. But I think Brevard is just a little more small town and nicer. I'd move here in a heartbeat, especially when I found out how cheap the homes are. If you want to buy a home here as of June 2023, the average home value is $428,000. That is not bad. Number 5, Walmart Town. Bentonville, Arkansas. That's right. If you hear the name Bentonville and you know anything about Walmart, you know this is where Walmart planted its roots. But if you're thinking Bentonville is just a company town owned by Walmart type thing, you'd sort of be wrong. There's so much more to this town. It's really hard for me to, say nice things about places in Arkansas. And it's not that I don't want to. There's just really not a lot of things nice to say about Arkansas when you're not talking about the northwest corner of the state. And that's exactly where Bentonville is. It's up there with Rogers and Springdale and Fayetteville, right in the middle of the Ozarks. They have this really cool thing here. It's called the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. This is a jaw-dropping, gorgeous museum that's funded by the Walmart heiress herself, Alice Walton. This museum has pieces from Andy Warhol and Norman Rockwell. Even though Bentonville is in Arkansas, it is one of the nicest places to live in the United States. Their cost of living is low, their crime is really low, they have great employment numbers, they get phenomenal healthcare numbers, their housing is decent, and their schools are excellent. I'm sure if you're living there, there's some things you could find wrong with it, but from a statistical point of view, this is one of the best places to live in the United States. And it's in frickin' Arkansas. Half the state's never been to a dentist. If you decide you want to move to Bentonville and buy a home, it's going to set you back about $432,000. Number 4, Fredericksburg, Texas. West of Austin and north of San Antonio, you have Fredericksburg, and it's not your typical Lone Star State town. Picture this. You stroll down the main street expecting the usual southern drawl, but instead, someone greets you with Guten Tag. That's right, Fredericksburg was founded by German settlers in the 19th century. Fredericksburg has clinged on to its Bavarian roots. Historic timber-framed houses stand side by side with rustic Texas buildings, and believe it or not, Oktoberfest here rivals those of many towns in Germany. That's what they say. I find that hard to believe. But it is a bit of a plot twist in the middle of cowboy country, having a Bavarian village. This is also wine country for Texas. It's kind of a nice place to live. I met some people on a cruise that lived there. They spoke very highly of Fredericksburg. From a statistical point of view, Fredericksburg is a great place to live. Great hospitals, good schools, housing's decent, employment is decent, crime is almost non-existent, their cost of living is low, not bad at all. Their housing, it's decent, but it's a little more expensive than you'd expect from this part of Texas. But it's a really nice town, so it kind of makes sense. The average home value here in Fredericksburg is $548,000. That's down about 4.3% over the past year. Number 3, Port Townsend, Washington. Port Townsend. If you've never heard of this coastal town in Washington, then buckle up because you're in for a treat. I really like this place. I've been here a few different times, but this one isn't for everyone, and there's a few reasons for this. It's kind of hard to get to. If you leave Seattle, you either got a long drive or you got a ferry, a few bridges, and a bit of a drive. People always say this is like the Northwest's best kept secret, so I'm letting the secret out. Really, I don't think you have to worry about too many people moving there. It is hard to get to, and it's a little bit out there. So I think that's the main reason a bunch of people don't live there. The typical stats like crime, great crime stats. Their employment numbers aren't the greatest. Their hospitals are great. Their commute is horrible. Like I said, ferries and a couple bridges, and it's a little expensive. The cost of living is about 12% higher than the national average, and their housing is about 42% higher. If you want to buy a home in Port Townsend, you're looking to spend around $608,000. So if you got some money and you want to retire in the Pacific Northwest, this is a great option. Number 2, Hudson, New York. If you're looking for Hudson, New York on a map, it is south of Albany on the Hudson River. Hudson is like a vintage record you find tucked away in your grandpa's attic, timeless and full of stories. And if you didn't pick up on it yet, Hudson is named after the river that it sits on. This place does have a lot of history, and these days they have a lot of antique shops, which kind of builds on those stories in a way. It also has some really good restaurants. Now, believe it or not, Hudson is 120 miles up the Hudson River from the Atlantic Ocean, and for a while it was big in whaling. Yes, the whaling industry, 120 miles from the ocean. It's a beautiful small town that has a population of around 6,000 people. They have great health care, decent schools, decent housing, crime rate's not terrible. The problem is their employment numbers. Their employment numbers are not good, so this is a great place to live if you do work remotely and let's say you have to go into the city every once in a while. It's about a 2-hour drive into New York City. What's cool is they've got pretty decent homes here and they are somewhat affordable. The home value here in Hudson is about $393,000 and it's jumped up 6.7% over the last year. So it's getting more expensive, but $400,000 for a decent place like this, that's not a bad number. All right, before we get to number 1, if you're looking to move to one of these places or any place in the United States, there's a link for Home and Money in the description box below. They can get you in touch with a real estate agent anywhere in the nation. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Blowing Rock, North Carolina. If you dive deep into the heart of the American Southeast, you'll stumble into the town that seems like a place straight out of a Nicholas Sparks novel, except with fewer rain-soaked kisses and more fascinating geology. I always make jokes about these romance movies. They were books that got turned into movies like The Notebook, A Walk to Remember, Dear John. Well, those were all written by Nicholas Sparks. It's like a cautionary tale of when someone gets a movie deal for romance novels. This is another town that sits along the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it's known for it. I've been to Blowing Rock, actually it was like 3 years ago. You've seen pictures of it in these videos. Actually, God, it was like a year and a half before the pandemic, so I guess it's been about almost 5 years now. Very interesting place. If you ever visit there, go to the gravity vortex of Mystery Hills. It's pretty interesting. All the stats are great. Low crime, they've got jobs, their healthcare is great. They're just expensive. They got a pretty high cost of living, and their housing can get a little expensive also. If you want to buy a house here, the typical home goes for around $661,000. That's down 0.2% from a year ago. It's not going down much, but it's going down a little bit. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.